Good morning, and we are here at somewhere that I'm extremely excited to be at. Today we're at Kennedy Space Center. Never been here before. I've always wanted to be here since I was a little boy. My son is running off. Let's go see what we can find here. What's open, what's not open. Some of the things are not. They are closed because of coronavirus. So let's find out what we can and can't do. Let's go. It is important to note that if you do plan on coming to Kennedy Space Center right now with all the coronavirus going on, they are only really taking online ticket sales. You cannot buy tickets here. So be sure to make arrangements online and you can get your tickets. You have to reserve tickets, so they're only selling a certain amount of tickets every day. So make sure you do reserve your day and time that you plan on coming. We just got through security. They're doing a very good job getting people through with metal detectors and taking people's temperatures. It's a very quick process. All you need to do is have your phone ready. They'll email you your ticket stub and they'll scan it directly from your phone. That way you can get buzzed in.
As we do that, let me answer the number one question that many people have when they come in here. Are these rockets real? Yes, these are real rockets, with one exception. The silver one on my left with the 109D at the bottom, that one is a model. All of the rest of these are real rockets. The next logical question is, did these rockets ever fly? No, they did not. If they'd flown, they would not be here today. These are leftover rockets that could have flown. The other thing to know about most of the rockets here in the garden is that they were originally military missiles, and we converted them for use into the space program. In '58, we launched our first American satellite into orbit. That satellite was called Explorer 1, and it launched on a rocket just like the one you can see over here, a rocket with the letters UE on it. That is the Juno 1 rocket. And if you look at the top, that thing that looks like an oversized white pencil, that's where the satellite was located. Now, this particular satellite had a Geiger counter built into it. There was a theory at the time that the Earth is surrounded by bands of radiation. And a gentleman named Dr. James Van Allen, one of the proponents of that theory, helped to design that satellite. Well, that Juno 1 rocket lifted off, we put the satellite into orbit, and we did prove that those radiation bands exist. Today, they are known as the Van Allen belts. Well, we wanted to launch bigger satellites than we could fit on the Juno 1, so we turned to a rocket just like the one over here that has NASA written on it. That is the Juno 2 rocket. We had some early problems with the Juno 2, but one of its first successes was the flight of a satellite called Pioneer 4. Now, Pioneer 4 was designed to fly by the moon and take pictures of the moon. Yeah, we didn't get quite as close to the moon as we hoped we would. We missed it by about 37,000 miles. But we were still learning how to do this stuff. Another rocket we used to launch early satellites is one just like the one right next to us here. It's got the number 19 at the bottom. This is the Thor Delta rocket. Now, Thor Delta was instrumental in launching our earliest communication satellite. The very first of those was a big silver balloon called Echo. And one of the most famous communication satellites at the time was called Telstar. Now, Telstar was very popular in culture. And in fact, there was a British rock group that wrote a song called Telstar, named after the satellite. Now, it was great. We were learning all these new skills, getting a lot of good information by launching satellites. On May 5th, 1961, we launched our first American astronaut into space. His name was Alan Shepard. He launched on top of the Mercury Redstone rocket, just like the one you see over here with the red United States, the black and white stripes. That black bell-shaped capsule is the Mercury capsule. It held one astronaut. Shepard's flight went up 116 miles, arced over the Atlantic Ocean, splashed down in the Atlantic near the Bahamas. Total flight time, about 15 minutes. Just 20 days later, President Kennedy said, "We're going to send a man to the moon and return him safely by the end of the decade." Of course, NASA's response to that jet bigger rocket, we turned to the Atlas rocket, just like the silver one over here. Again, if you look at the top, you will see a Mercury capsule up there. Atlas was our first intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM. Again, we converted it for use into the space program. And in February 1962, John Glenn became the most famous man in the Western world when he became the first American to orbit the Earth. He did 3 Earth orbits, had a very successful mission. Hey, he even got a ticker tape parade. Well, we had 3 more manned missions on the Mercury Atlas rocket, and at the end of Project Mercury, we had proved that man can exist in space. But if we were going to get to the moon and back, we had to learn how to work in space. We moved from Project Mercury to what was called Project Gemini. Now remember, Gemini means the twin. That Gemini capsule held 2 astronauts. Look over here, you see the big silver rocket, black and white stripes at the bottom? That is the rocket. Again, originally built as an intercontinental ballistic missile, but if you way at the top, the black thing up there is a Gemini capsule. Now we had a number that were part of the Gemini program. We had our first American spacewalker, Ed White, with Gemini 4. We had our first rendezvous in space where there were 2 Gemini capsules in orbit at the same time, capsules. Speaking of Gemini 7, it was at that point in time the longest duration American space flight. Gemini 7 was in orbit for 14 days. Now, I want you to take another look at that capsule, top of that rocket. And now I want you to imagine sitting next to someone else in that amount of space for 14 days. Yeah, we do have a mock-up of a Gemini capsule on the ground. You get a better look at it down there. You can't stand up during that time. You have to work with that person, sleep with that person, eat with that person. Gemini, that took place in 1965 and 66. We were excited. We were ready to go. We said, we've learned all these new skills, now let's go to the moon. We moved to Project Apollo. Well, the Apollo capsule was bigger still. It held 3 astronauts. To get it into space, yep, we needed a big rocket. We turned to the Saturn 1B rocket, just like the one you see lying on its side there in the background. Now, the Saturn 1B is the only rocket here in the garden that was not originally a military missile. It was built specifically for human flight. In January 1967, 3 Apollo 1 astronauts, Gus Ed White and Roger Chaffee, doing a dress rehearsal near launch. They were inside the capsule on top of the rocket. Inside that capsule, 2 wires sparked. Flash wire that filled the capsule. And unfortunately, we lost all 3 astronauts. And that was a tragedy. But at the same time, it was a wake-up call. So they pulled out. They totally re-examined that Apollo capsule and made over 1,300 changes to it. And a little less than 2 years later, October 1968, NASA launched Apollo 7 on the Saturn 1B rocket, just like the one you see back here. That mission was so successful that NASA said, for our very next flight, we are going to the moon. But to get to the moon, we needed an even bigger rocket yet. Well, we turned to the Saturn V. Now, we don't have a Saturn V rocket here in the garden. I think with your admission today, you got a return ticket for next year. I hope you can use that. If you do, be sure to take the bus tour, which should be running again by then. We're going to take you up to the Apollo Saturn V Center. It will be a real Saturn V rocket. And trust me, it is huge. To kind of give you an idea of how big it is, see the length of the Saturn 1B lying on its side? Almost double it. So in December 1968, NASA launched Apollo 8. We sent 3 astronauts to the moon, put them in orbit around the moon. On Christmas Eve, they sent back a very moving photograph of the lunar landscape with the Earth rising in the background. Very dramatic photo sent to the entire planet. We then had Apollo 9, Apollo 10. Of course, July 1969, we did land our first man on the moon with Apollo 11. All right, let's do a quick quiz. Who can tell me the name of the first person to set foot on the moon?
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong. Very good. Now, how about the second person to set foot on the moon?
Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin. Not Buzz Lightyear. Yeah, don't confuse those two. So we have had 6 manned moon landings. Only 12 people have ever walked on the moon. They all launched from right here at the Kennedy Space Center. Apollo 17 was our last moon landing, but it was not the end of the Apollo program. From there, we moved to Project Skylab. Now, Skylab was our first attempt at working with a space station. We had several Skylab missions.
This is the Sigma 7 with a Mercury capsule attached to it, which is only meant for one person. So the Mercury missions started in 1958 and they lasted to 1963, as you can see on the wall. Mercury missions, basically what it is the capsule which held the astronaut. It's the size, basically, is the difference between each of them. So Mercury had one astronaut and would only go up into orbit and then come straight down. Gemini had 2 people, would go up for orbit for 2 weeks, 14 days, and would come back down. And then the Apollo was much bigger, of course, with 3 astronauts inside, and they went to the moon. Deke Slayton's World War II bomber jacket, his survival knife, Deke Slayton's ID badge right here with his military cap and squadron patch. Trying to read the plaque on this trophy. 2nd place, Deke Slayton, National Championship Air Races. Wow, look how many bombs he's dropped. I'm not sure if I can get that, but it says Donald K. Slayton on that name patch. He was a skinny guy. Oh, Mercury Mission Control. So for the Mercury missions with the one-man missions into the reaches of space and coming right back down, they told us that the flight usually only lasted a couple of hours and then they would land in the Bahamas. Only one-man flights. Like with this rocket above us, the MR6. Gemini Capsule. The heat shield scars. All the different countries that are involved in the International Space Station. So I assume this is where you would normally get onto the bus, which unfortunately is closed now, but they did give us a return ticket, and I think they would take us out to that blue building out there, which is where like the Saturn V rocket is at. But we'll have to come back for that because I definitely want to come see the Saturn V. But right now we're going to go inside and see the Shuttle Atlantis. These things are massive. Just utterly massive. Looks like we're gonna have to wait another 5.5 minutes before they allow anybody else to go in. This is it. This is Atlantis. Space Shuttle Atlantis. If I could describe the amount of goosebumps that are on me right now, the presentation that they gave us coming into this building, you enter through this big old door right here and it's a video presentation, which is amazing, and it brought me to tears. This is just unbelievable. This is the Shuttle Atlantis. What's crazy is that we saw the Millennium Falcon, but this is a real spaceship. This isn't make-believe. This is a real spaceship. Shuttles like this is what built that space station, launched the satellites that we use every day with our cell phones and our satellite TVs. Without this ship right here, we wouldn't have the technology floating around in space that we do now. It still even has burn marks. You can see the coloration of the burn from re-entry. Look at up here, the scorches. So here we have a exact replica of the Hubble telescope. I mean, of course, the real Hubble telescope is still in orbit. So of course this is just an exact replica. See, another group came in through the presentation over here to see Atlantis. of Challenger. This is the left side body panel. Challenger crashed January 28th, 1986. And of course, Columbia. The cockpit windows, February 1st, 2003. Challenger, Columbia, and Enterprise. That Hubble telescope from upstairs. And right below it is one of the NASA buses that would take the astronauts out to the launch pad.